gets back home tonight, and the clock just starts right over, and the walls come closing in, and the bathroom dips and then twirls, and your eyes get sunken in so deeply you can't recognize the face you see so easily. No one gets back home tonight.
And we are back.
We are back. Welcome back, everybody.
Sorry, my earbuds are now playing around with my sound. My thing crashed, so everything's now reset.
No.
I know,
No.
right? All right,
Yeah. It's going to make a different track to edit. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Apparently, I'm getting clipped again, so that happened.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a good clip.
Well, let's ignore the last clip, okay?
What was the last clip?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Samera. What was the last clip? Why don't you tell the whole class?
Well,
And we don't have to go into it if you don't want to.
oh
I
no.
just I'm a tease.
Just go.
It-
Tell you what.
There's a
Go into the
channel.
Discord.
There's a channel called Strim Clips. Just go
Strim.
look. Just go look.
Okay.
It's the only clip that's there.
Oh, I see. Yep. That'll do that.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Now I'm gonna be so self-conscious about what I do with my hands.
Honestly, you can't do much worse than that.
Fair.
What if I do like something like,
I love how you're like something like this, knowing it will
Something like
well get clipped and put into that channel.
Hey, sometimes you just gotta
clip it?
You gotta pander to the clip, okay?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, see, I don't mind it because I've done much stupider things on Twitch that have been clipped.
Yeah.
So, because I've been streaming for 3 or 4 years, which is funny
Okay.
because it's all post-transition. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
stream before that. But anyways, this isn't about me. This is about you.
Aren't all things? No.
And there it
You
is.
sound like me now. You sound like me. Okay.
Hey,
This is
I
great.
can't help it. If you're gonna give me an ego, expect me to use it.
I mean,
I'm
all
saying.
models need an ego, you know?
Well, yeah, it helps with the look, when you give them that
Yeah.
smolder.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, the camera just loves you.
thank you. That's what I've been saying.
Oh my god. That look you like.
But no, what do you guys want to know about me?
Well, since we took the break, the first part was all about getting to know you and seeing, just knowing about you. Let's
Yeah.
jump right into the modeling since we've already kind of gone.
Yeah, we
into
touched
that.
on it. Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
chat. We have chat questions, which I think is great. Encourage chat. Yes, please put questions in for our guest.
I'm an open book.
Do you do much traveling for modeling
Yeah.
from
so
Fireclef?
I haven't yet. Most of the modeling that I've done has been local to at least my region. But the goal is to eventually at some point look to start doing some more things out in like New York or Los Angeles. I actually recently got my digitals done. I'm still waiting on them back, but that'll be kind of like next steps for me is like setting up like agency stuff and trying to kind of not necessarily make it full time as a professional, because that's kind of supermodel territory, and I'm a ways off from that. But at least
If you do the shape changing, you could put the super in supermodel.
Yeah,
and get your foot in the door.
exactly. Girl, you got it.
I got you.
Yeah. Well, and I like to think that I've already like done the superpower that is like customizing my own avatar. So,
Yeah.
but
You really hit the reset button on that character creation screen.
100%. I don't know what I was thinking when I hit randomize. I was a mistake.
I mean, judging by your photos, you've already figured out the whole shape-shifting thing. Like, you are, how models can, look one way one day and then look a completely different way the next is...
It's like a lot of it is makeup, but also a lot of it's kind of like how you carry yourself. And like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain because I guess maybe it's not as hard. The way that you move when you're more masculine presenting and the way that you move when you're more feminine presenting is a very big part of gender. And so you can sort of play around with that a little bit more when you learn how to kind of control how you move. So for example, this is something I'm still working on. I have a tendency, just given, my historical past playing the part of a man, to take more like wide stance, like, feet firmly planted, kind of like power stances. But when you're trying to come off more feminine, for example, you want to slouch your shoulders a lot more. You want to change the angles. Yet, the tendencies can be, to like stand with your shoulders squared. And, it's all about how you move. And obviously makeup and hair can make a pretty big difference. One of my favorite pictures, actually, I'm just sitting down in a kind of like slouched, kind of haphazard pose in a cyberpunk shoot that I did. Oh yeah, no, don't mind me. I'm gonna post this in Selfie Stick Edition.
Okay.
Because I did a paired shoot, and when I tell you that like this was affirming for me, despite the fact that it comes off exceedingly masculine, it's all in how you move. And that's going up into Selfie Stick Wholesome Edition in and about now. But this was a duo shoot that I did. And basically, even though I'm sitting down in a very masculine pose, it still can come across as feminine. It's all in the subtleties. I really like this one because it kind of gives me like Cyber Mafia vibes. And I mean, I've played Cyberpunk 2077, so like it was a lot of fun to do that.
It looks very androgynous, absolutely. Like that's amazing. And by the way, I'm going to give you full, after this whole thing, you can go ahead and spam that channel. I'm giving you full leeway to go nuts.
Just drop in all of my favorite pictures.
By all means, go for it.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
please do.
I saw another question that was asking about the favorite parts of modeling for me.
And your favorite type of model sessions.
Yeah. So I find that I enjoy working with photographers who kind of like act as your hype man. So some photographers, they're very kind of just like, yep, okay, tilt your head a little to the left. And like,
better or worse? Better or worse?
Yeah. I'm thankful, right, that they're willing to work with me and everything, but it can be a little bit hard to like find yourself in the right mindset when you don't have photographers who outwardly are kind of, showing that. But I've happened to work with a handful of really great photographers. One of my favorite, John G. McGrath. He is like an Emmy award-winning photographer, and working with him has been one of the best experiences I've ever had, just because of how he like speaks during the shoot, where you can hear the excitement, where he's like, oh yeah, that's the good shot. And then, he'll take a good one and then he'll kind of like hop on over you and be like, hey, take a look. And you see on the little screen and everything, he's like, you are just so gorgeous in this. And honestly, that's some of Yeah, it's the favorite part of modeling for me is like getting to participate in making what amounts to art, but it's all collaborative, you know? And if you enjoy what you're doing, I feel like you tend to do better at it, you know? I don't know, all the shoots where I've been like, oh, this is really cool, and I'm loving this look, I'm loving the outfit, I feel like have produced some of the best shots I've ever taken.
So
Yeah.
fun story. I actually looked him up, and on his Instagram, like one of the first photos has you sitting right there. I love
Yep.
that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it might be when I got published out of Amsterdam, but because we did that shoot a little while ago, but it finally ended up getting published, and that was a photo shoot that I actually helped coordinate. My partner at the time had did most of the work, but basically we had a handful of connections that do. So I'm based out of Kansas City, and there is a pretty big fashion scene there, you know, compared to like most of the Midwest. Obviously, Chicago is like the true Midwest center of like fashion, but Kansas City has like a whole fashion week where you do runway and all of that stuff. And we had some people who were looking to do just more with their designs, like a designer who wanted to kind of highlight some of their stuff. So we ended up getting a big cast of models. We had a full team of hair and makeup specialists, and then we had John, who did wonderful. He took such amazing pictures, and that was one of my favorite shoots to do, just because it felt really good, and everybody was super nice. It was a lot of fun. But those are the two shoots that I did that are actually going to be published. The second one will be hopefully here in the next couple days out of Tokyo, and then
Very cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited. We've got more questions coming in hot in the chat. I've got Fireclef here. What has surprised you about the modeling industry?
Yeah, so actually, the biggest surprise for me is how inclusive it is. A lot of my message on social media is that like modeling can be a trans inclusive space. Like, it doesn't have to be something that's unattainable for us. It is something we can pursue. And obviously there's still going to be a measure of like vain requirement, right? It's ultimately, that's just the industry, right? It's modeling.
That's the industry.
You got to be able to look good. And like, obviously a fair amount of that is genetics, but also a fair amount of it is something that you can control. And so for me, the thing that surprised me the most is how inclusive it is, not just in terms of like the queer community, but like of different body shapes and sizes. I actually recently got to work with a photographer, Images by Carrie Jean. She specifically works with, because she does it purely as a hobby. She specifically works with models that are of all different sizes, both short and tall, skinnier and heavier. She specifically does photo shoots that focus on like how bullying and oppression can affect people. She just recently did a photo shoot that was based around it was all in like black and white, and she got a bunch of people who the world might see as conventionally less attractive or with body types that don't fit like the standard kind of media narrative, and then really focused on kind of showing how it affects people by having them like write on the different like awful names and stuff that people might have like leveraged at them, and just, you know, to really like evoke like what it's like for people, and also how it's not something that actually impedes their ability to participate in these spaces. The last photo shoot that I did with her, I want to say there were about 6 models, and I am and maybe one other person was what you might call like the more conventional model look. Like the kind that you might expect to see on a runway. And so I was actually the minority in that regard.
I'm just putting this question on the screen because you already kind of answered it. Are there other trans models in your area, or are you the only one? Just wanted to make sure that was pinned there because you kind of talked a little bit about having some more interaction with that. I do have other questions in chat. I'm sorry, I probably can't get to all of them. We've got about half an hour left of recording time and stream time, but I want to make sure that I get to as many as possible. And get to whatever you want to talk about too.
And there's other questions that, Riv and I also want to try and get to as well.
Yeah. Well, there are other trans models in my area, though a few of them are kind of moving away just as a result of the recent social climate. I'm not in the best states for us, but there are 2 to 3 other prominent models in my area, I'm pretty sure. And I do know them, ironically. There's the sort of joke that like, oh, you're trans, that means you must know this person, right?
We know each other.
In this industry, at least here, it is less prevalent, but some of the biggest models I know are actually transgender. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so there's not a whole bunch of people, but I am becoming one of the go-to members. I think people are starting to reach out to me. I'm starting to get connected with other members of the community who are interested. So I'm hoping at least to shepherd a bit more of us into the limelight, because y'all bitches deserve it. Okay. Like,
that's amazing. Yeah, and I mean, even on that note, like I think it's Victoria's Secret at one point had one of their angels that's a trans model.
Yeah, it's 100% doable. It takes a lot of effort for even a normal person to do it, and a decent amount of luck, but any amount of like earnest effort can take you pretty far.
One of the things I wanted to kind of ask and go over for you is with doing modeling and things like that, and also with your transition, how have you found it with like all the requirements of being a model, and then also trying to also find yourself in that whole, how has that kind of been in your walk of your transition with everything?
Yeah. So there are not necessarily a lot of requirements when it comes to modeling. A lot of it comes down to how creative you can be, the people you know, and how much effort and energy you're willing to put into the system, because the system typically works in a energy out, energy in, reverse those, energy in, energy out kind of situation. The more you invest, the more you invest into the space, the more the space ends up investing in you. But as it pertains to like my individual transition, honestly, starting to model is kind of how I started finding myself. More so because I'd been transitioning for 3.5 years, and like, yes, I was in a better spot, but I didn't realize exactly how important it was for me validation wise to interact with this community, just because I mean, like I said earlier, all the hot bitches have anxiety, and you hoard enough of it and it makes you doubt yourself. But being able to kind of be in an environment where, like, logically you have to be at least some modicum of like attractive, right, in order to do the modeling thing, kind of irregardless of gender, irregardless of anything else. People have to kind of want to see you again. And I kind of remember most of my early transitioning kind of being worried about going outside, and being perceived as, not passing, or, as not feminine enough. But now with modeling having been what it was, I almost feel like I don't need that external validation from like random strangers in person, because I know that there is an entire community that is working really hard in order to, you know, provide that in a different way. And so, you know, like becoming more of an advocate for the trans community, engaging in modeling and connecting with different members of the community has been key. I honestly think I would have struggled a lot more if I hadn't started engaging in that than I have ultimately.
And I think that whole community thing is hitting the head, and that's what Riv and I are definitely working so hard to do here, is to make sure that there is a community, because of the fact that, I mean, honestly and truly, like, I met Riv before the community existed, and all of the things that I went through, I wouldn't have been able to do without her.
Yeah.
Oh.
Your people make
so,
a
I
difference.
mean, she was my community before the community began.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it's important.
It's 100% important, and we get people who come into the community constantly who are, yeah. So, I mean, what you were just saying is hitting the nail on the head exactly, of just that community is there.
Well, and especially more recently.
Oh, 100%. Is there a community, I guess, in the modeling as well for transgender models?
So there's less of us because we are an underrepresented part of the population. Like a lot of us struggle with body image issues and dysphoria even after we transition. Like, what some people might think is the case is that dysphoria vanishes once you transition, but it doesn't fully. It gets a lot more manageable, but like obviously we're not, you know, flipping a magical switch and saying, okay, now everything about us is perfectly feminine or masculine. There's always going to be those moments where it creeps up, and that can really like hold us back from like seeing our true potential. And so I found that while there are less of us in the modeling space, there are a lot of allies, people who like legitimately will go to bat for us and have like proven so, especially at least in my area. Most of the people that I've connected with have, like, for example, the hair and makeup studio that I work with, they don't allow transphobia at all. If it's found, they remove the person. They do not indulge that kind of like harassment or intolerance. And that's kind of like, they do so vehemently because if you think about it, right, I want you to picture 10 years ago when RuPaul's Drag Race kind of TV show first started up. Like, we have been a part of this space for so long, even if we haven't been what most people associate with modeling and drag and performance arts like this, we have been there. And the community itself knows that and treats us with that kind of like respect and validation. So I'd say while there isn't like a direct community of transgendered like models who are all like in a group chat together, the community itself has and will continue to go to bat for us where it matters.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Transphobia neutralized.
Yeah. Aggressively. With extreme prejudice. Yes.
Yeah. Which is kind of a funny phrase to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, hating on hate does not make you a hateful person.
Right.
It makes you right.
What about the tolerant left?
Oh
Hey,
my God.
Whatever.
Being intolerant of intolerance is not the same thing as just being intolerant.
Could you hear the way I spelled the way I said that?
Yeah. Yeah.
With the letters all, alternating capitalization.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to get into another chat question here because I got a couple to burn through.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I've got from the Trans Kitchen. When it comes to creativity, what is an over-the-top concept you'd love to do a photo shoot for?
Yeah. Okay. So I actually I have this problem where I look at Pinterest for like 3 hours and I just like a whole bunch of things. But
Sure.
as you can sort of tell, I don't know if you guys noticed or anything, but I am alternative. You might see me in very like standard, styles of clothing for like fashion photo shoots and stuff that I do. But I am a punk goth bitch at my core.
Shout out to punk goth bitches out there everywhere.
Yeah, okay. We're thankfully becoming more mainstream lately, and I cannot get enough of it because all the pretty bitches are out there doing it. But I really want to do so. One of the photos that I shared earlier, the sort of like Grecian angelic goddess vibes, I want to do something like that, but I want to go dark with it. I want like super heavy, like black, like makeup. I want to have like the pale, almost like porcelain skin. I want to have like a big, like flowy black robe, and I want it to be like dark and goth and gritty and like, ooh, yes. It also,
you want the Snyder cut.
Yes.
Oh
I
my gosh.
need the Snyder cut. It's a requirement. Okay. I don't make the rules. I follow them when they suit me. But
thanks for putting up with me.
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards. I need the dark gothic shoot. It calls to me at my very core.
I think we all need that now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's make 100%. It happen.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Samera does not want the.
I'm not the dark gothy.
Just tie it like it ties a little bit into like the pagan roots a little bit, just a little bit.
Ooh, tell us more about
I'm
fellow
all for
pagan
the pagan. I'm all about the pagan, but I mean, I'm also like the, I want my soft plushies and just cuddle and just No,
I get that.
I mean, I feel like goth girls are often the softest girls at heart.
Hey, now, you don't need to be calling me out like this.
Hey.
I'm supposed to be tough.
Look, I know that I look like a yoga instructor most of the time, but I am a goth girl.
But no, so you asked about the pagan side of things.
Yes.
So I kind of really researched religion a lot when I was in college. I would go to like 6 a.m. morning like Bible studies. I went to like a handful of mosques, and I was the curious type where I wanted to see what was out there because I didn't know what really resonated with me. But as soon as I sort of like stumbled upon like pagan beliefs and a lot of like almost sort of, because like paganism and Buddhism are a little similar, but not quite. And I found that I resonated with principles from both, but I've always kind of been the type to approach spirituality individually. My connection with the divine, with spirituality, is not something that like I really think I can ascribe to other people's like rigid belief structures. And so I'm the type to forge connections where other people find them. And so like, for example, my tattoo, I don't know if I can really show it well, but
I see some
it's
runes
very
there in
pretty.
Center.
Yeah, so I really liked the Norse compass, and then I have what effectively amounts to like plants and vines and stuff reaching toward my hand. And the concept behind that is the world tree, Yggdrasil, from like Norse paganism, representing the world. And then right here, I specifically have the almost sort of like stylized roots, but I work better with like geometry personally. Stylized roots connecting to my hand. And so the goal is that like my hand is how I interact with the world symbolically. And then so through the roots, I connect to the body of the world, where I use the compass to navigate myself towards the sun, which, if you know anything about tarot, the sun card is one of the only cards that represents, like, without exception, happiness. And so a lot of that is sort of like how I try and frame my spirituality is, how can I create the most human happiness with my actions? In fact, this line on my chin is actually an homage to like my specific rune structure, because I don't follow like Elder Futhark or anything like that. Because that's the thing. Ultimately, I struggle with the concept that there's no concrete like origin, there's no concrete meaning for a lot of these symbols, but people ascribe their own meanings to them, and that's ultimately enough for them. So I instead created my own runic structure, and that lets me ascribe whatever meanings I want to them without necessarily appropriating or anything. And so if you ever see a line on me in as it pertains to like a photo shoot or something like that, that's usually symbolic. So in this case, I've been wanting to connect more with our community. And so that's what this line represents, is connecting my voice to the body, you know, the populace. And so that's sort of how I practice a lot of that pagan mindset and spirituality. Is I try and do things in a more actionable way. Or at least symbolically actionable way.
That's really cool. Yeah. I love the fact that you actually went and explored like mosques and things like that, as well as when you were exploring your spirituality.
I knew that I wanted something. I just couldn't figure out what until I'd done the research. I've always been the researching analytical type, but yeah.
No, that's really cool. This actually kind of ties into the whole tattoo and pagan, and a question from the community. Trinity was asking, hair and makeup, how often do you have it done, and how often do you do it yourself for a shoot? And then I also want to add on to that, do you find that you have to like do makeup on your arm for cover up and things like that?
Yeah. So for me, if it's a photo shoot that I'm doing with like another photographer, 9 times out of 10, I have other people doing my makeup. I leverage my connections in the community, and the hair and makeup school that I work with specifically doesn't necessarily offer these services as like a paid thing, but they have a lot of students who are learning how to do hair and makeup. That includes cutting it, that includes styling it. And so because I was able to connect with the sort of like head instructor at that school, every Saturday they dedicate time out of their like school structure in order to practice makeup specifically. And so the head instructor is kind enough to say, hey, you know, our students need practice, you need makeup, let's make something happen. And so now typically if I have a photo shoot, I schedule it on a Saturday, and then I go in and have it pseudo-professionally done, you know, by some of the students who are interested in the community. And as it pertains to my tattoo, I have never covered it up. It's not something I'm interested in covering up. It's a part of me at like my very core. And that ultimately makes me an alternative model, the fact that I have any tattoos. So because I am technically an alternative model, I don't necessarily need to worry about that as much, because people are going to know what they're getting when they get me. But yeah, I haven't covered it up just because I don't really need to. And it's a part of myself I don't compromise on.
That's really cool.
The only time I might cover it up is if I were doing like something more along the lines of acting, you know, where my goal is not to play myself, but to play someone else. Because at that point, I'm not representing me. I'm representing a character, But even though modeling is sort of like representing a version of yourself that isn't the normal, it is still ultimately me, and I want that to be represented, by any iconography I put on my body.
Absolutely. Do you do a little bit of acting then alongside of this?
It's something I'm interested in, but it's not something that I've really had the time to pursue right away. If the opportunities came up, I would definitely pursue them. But I just haven't. I've been focused on the modeling side of things, but I would kind of like to, in the long term, like work in that direction potentially. Ever since I saw one of the actors in Sense8 was another trans actor, I realized, I was like, okay, I've seen maybe one, maybe two, like transgendered actors, and I want to change that. I want to show we can do things in more spaces than just this one form of creativity.
I fucking love that. And I hope that you get to experience that.
Me too.
Yeah. And we can be like, hey, we had her on our podcast first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll talk about it. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, that's sort of where I'm going with that.
Awesome. I had a question and it left my brain.
Oh no.
Which is great.
Then I'll go back to another community question that was also proposed. Is being a trans model competitive with cis models, or is there a call specifically for trans models?
Yeah.
And this was by Bree Moon.
Yeah. So when it comes to like how competitive the industry is, it is a competitive space in general. There's a lot of pretty people out there, and there's a lot of them that know they're pretty and willing to do something about it. But while there is some measure of like alternative model calls where they want somebody who is not just your typical cis straight white woman, it's not something that is super distinguished. Those are usually statement shoots where like you're attempting to make a statement about the fact that alternative people can be models. But I've found that typically the competition isn't really you working against other people. It's kind of you working against yourself, working against the industry. The industry is quick, it's fast, and trends matter. It's content creation at its very core, and that requires a grind mindset. You got to be willing to work, you got to be willing to put in the hours, and like you ultimately just gotta be willing to put that effort in. And the hardest part of that is like reminding yourself that it's worth it, and like keeping up the energy, because if you take a break and you fall out of relevancy, you can see pretty steep drop-offs. And a lot of the times when it comes to being competitive, people want to see that you're constantly making content, that you're developing a following, and that's how they determine whether or not you're successful. So it's not necessarily that, for example, right, I'm not competing against River, right? It's we're all working in this social media environment, in this content creation space, and I'm not poaching audience from River or anything like that. That's not how it works. It ultimately boils down to who are you able to inspire to work with you, and how can you continue to do that? And it's ultimately just effort.
Can I just say thank you for inspiring us to work with you?
Well, yeah. I honestly am besmitten, so.
Besmitten.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my question, and because we're getting to the last 10 minutes of our stream here.
Yeah.
I know, everyone, don't get too sad. It'll be available to rewatch on the Patreon behind a paywall soon. You're welcome, because I gotta pay for these subscription services on all the tools we use.
Yeah.
So Thea,
Yeah.
for any of our folks out there who are interested in getting into modeling, do you have any, our trans folks specifically?
Yeah.
Do you have any tips, tricks, any kind of sage wisdom for them while they begin their journey?
Yeah. So just like in most like sort of like social forward spaces, networking is really important. Who you know matters. It's not all that matters, but it does matter a fair amount. I got pretty lucky. I started getting involved in those spaces, and then I was able to sort of use that as like a launching off point. But it's not a requirement, because ultimately it took me reaching out to the community writ large in order to like really drive that consistency. So my suggestion is, if you're interested in this space and you want to pursue it, you should look at social media groups. Facebook, nobody really uses it all that much anymore, but people do use it for the groups. So, for example, there is a group with almost 5,000 people in it, just in my local area, that is all based around photography, makeup artists, and models. And you can post there and say, hey, here are some pictures of me. I want to start working. I want to do these types of shoots. And if people are interested in your style and your look, then they'll reach out to you. But ultimately, it takes some of like the pre-work of taking nice pictures of yourself, making sure you're not using filters or anything like that, doing your makeup. That's going to be your biggest hurdle. You're not going to be able to just jump straight into agency work unless somebody scouts you, but that is exceedingly rare. A lot of it is you do something that's called TFP, or time for print. And TFP work is specifically everybody is investing in the end result images for free, right? So photographers are taking their time, they're retouching the images, they're buying camera equipment, backdrops. You, the model, might be buying clothing, makeup. You might be buying like different tools for, say, like styling your hair. Makeup artists are bringing in their own supplies, and nobody's really getting compensated for this, but it's ultimately about building your portfolio. Agencies aren't going to pick you up unless they can see that you're dedicated and consistent enough to pursue this, because it's a quick field and it requires a lot of that effort. So if you can demonstrate that by reaching out, by like, say there's a photographer that you really like the content of, go on their Instagram, reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking to do this kind of thing. I have this idea in mind. I've got this outfit. Take a picture of you in that outfit and say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you want to work together? Be aware that not everybody's going to want to do like time for print style work, because it is ultimately a time sink with no monetary like compensation. But there are going to be photographers out there who are more than capable of producing really good images that will want to work with you. You just got to find them. So it's that searching and finding that's really important. But one thing that I'll say, because I know we're a little running out of time, but this is actually the most important thing that I could tell you: vet your photographers. And I say this with like complete like seriousness. Not everybody out there has good intentions, and you have to assume that they don't have good intentions until you've kind of met them. Always bring an escort. If a photographer isn't cool with you coming to a photo shoot with a friend, that's a problem. Don't shoot with them, because ultimately safety is what matters first. And not everybody, like until you're in the community, it's hard to like have a network of people where you can ask, hey, I might be working with this photographer. Do you know anything about them? Until you forge that network, you have to be cautious, especially if you're more feminine. And especially for us as, you know, transgendered people, especially in the current social climate, not everybody that's a photographer out there is going to have that inclusive mindset. So make sure that you're safe, make sure that you're consistent, and that you're willing to reach out, because those are going to be the three things that kind of get you started on the path to success. And then it's ultimately you who's going to be required to take each and every next step going forward after that.
Cool. Thank
Excellent,
you for sharing.
Sage wisdom. Yes, thank you.
So to end it off on a little bit of a lighter note, one of the things you kind of shared with Riv and I is a funny story about how you chose your name, and we would love to hear this.
Yeah. Okay. So I, as we discussed earlier, really like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Well, I, for the most part, played male characters back when I was pre-transition, just because that was sort of like the expected norm. And I, as a quote unquote cis straight white man at the time, was not the most comfortable playing like a feminine role. Until I was like, you know what, I haven't played a female character before, and I should probably diversify a little bit. And so I went and I played one, and her name was Theialia. Well, I played in that campaign for a little bit, and it was honestly kind of a throwaway campaign because it was not well moderated by the dungeon master, and it didn't last super long. But I found that I really like accents, and I really like that kind of like, confident Western girl kind of vibes. And so that's sort of how I played this character. And I just remember everybody at the table being like, wow, you're playing this character so well. Like, you're really getting into it. And I was like, yeah, it's just kind of coming naturally to me. Well, go figure. It came naturally to me because I was moving in that direction already.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. A year or two later, though, when I actually finally started going through the process of trying to figure out my gender, I kind of came to the realization, I think I am probably transgender. And I call up my best friend from college, to like tell him, because I'm like, if anybody's going to have my back on this, it's going to be him. And I was like, hey, I think I'm starting to question things along these lines. And he was like, oh my gosh, you're Theia. And my autistic ass literally like grabbed the phone, because I was like talking like this. And I legit like stimmed like this when he said it. Yes. And you know how in like every college philosophy course, they talk about the concept of like universal truths, right? Like there are just certain principles of reality that we can logically dictate are a universal truth, assuming certain assumptions. That was literally the first time that I ever heard what I would consider to be a universal truth, because like I hardly cared about my old name, but hearing this one, I just knew that was my name. That was my ultimate. There's no other. This was my name. And as soon as he said it, I was like, yep, okay. Yeah, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. So
that's so cool.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah. So I ultimately became my D&D character, who ironically was a changeling, by the way. just to
classic
sort of things. Yeah, totally not indicative of anything.
Of anything at all.
No.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show here, and I want to make sure we give you time to plug all of the things. Get your minds out of the gutter, chat. Where can we find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, so you can find me on Threads and Instagram right now. I am also starting up on TikTok. I'm going to be doing trans-oriented content, specifically around some of the advice that I gave here when it pertains to modeling, but also just talking about the trans experience in general, because there's still a lot of us, especially in this early period of the Trump administration right now, that are going to need advice. They're going to need something to reference. And so I'm kind of toying around with the concept of like the Ned's Declassified Trans Survival Guide and kind of vibes where, you know, I'll be talking about different ways that you can use stylings and makeup and hair in order to kind of push yourself more in the direction you might want to. But Threads is where I'm going to be primarily seen. Here tomorrow, actually, I'm going to be releasing the other images connected to some of the ones that we teased here today. So you'll be able to see the full outcome of those shoots tomorrow if you liked those and wanted to see more. keep an eye out there, and that's where you'll find me next.
Thank you.
All the socials are in the chat.
They're in the chat, and they'll be on the description for the follow-up posting of this on Patreon and otherwise. Yes. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. Thank you for coming.
How could I not?
We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to sign off for the stream. Thanks for everyone for attending, listening, like you're at a lecture of some kind.
Yeah.
And we'll spot you later. And for everyone who's actually on video right now, when I hit the stop recording button, we'll still be live for a little bit while it uploads the local recording of your audio and video to the cloud, so that I can edit it later and make it good. Make it good.
And
all right,
just
thanks
like
everyone.
Usual, come check out our Discord and check out River's socials as well. And my social is there too. So
I just remembered something.
What's up?
Theia, would you, this is on the spot, and I'm sorry, it's on the spot. Would you be willing to, if there are questions people have for you that didn't get answered within the chat on stream, and since you're part of the Discord server, shout out Discord server, it's great. You should all be there. Would you be willing to maybe accept questions and answer them in the episode discussion channel on the Discord server?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I can probably spare like an hour and a half tonight. But yeah, if I don't get to him tonight, I can happily get to him in the near future.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, well, everyone ping Theia with your questions in the episode discussion channel on the Discord server, and she will do her best to get back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And with that, everyone have a great night.